Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I begin our webinar today by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the place that I join you from today, where people have been meeting and talking for thousands of years. I pay my respects to those elders who are past, present, and emerging for their custodianship of country, and extend my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island brothers and sisters who are here today. I also welcome the many custodians of lands and sea around the world. We have friends joining from across the Pacific, the United States, Southeast Asia, and Europe today. My name is Jazz Chambers, and together with my colleagues from Ocean Decade Australia, Dr. Lucy Buxton and Kate Picard, we thank our presenters and contributors for their time and energy in bringing their expertise and insights to this special United Nations Ocean Conference pre-briefing session. Today's session will be recorded. We welcome your questions in the Q&A chat, which we will have time for later in the session after we've heard from all of today's contributors. While we may not manage to get to all questions, we will do our best to come back with responses in follow-up communications. Regarding today's agenda, we will have an expert brief. We'll obviously be talking about the conference. We will also talk about the United Nations Ocean Decade Framework and the Australian contributions and actions, and also points of contact. For those of you who are new to Ocean Decade Australia, we are a national not-for-profit leadership organisation focused on connecting Australia's ocean stakeholders through knowledge, networking, learning and advocacy. So together we can drive the conditions for a successful and sustainable blue economy and ocean sector. Part of our mission is to fill the gap when it comes to cross-sectoral dialogue, working collaboratively with industry specialists, colleagues and friends who are expert in areas of ocean food, fishing, science, energy, resources, tourism, communications, shipping and infrastructure. In addition to our cross-sectoral approach, ODA plays a distinctive role by creating platforms and opportunities for the ocean to show up in places where it has not obviously been considered a strategic imperative. This is in broader business and boardroom discussions, ESG considerations, retail at large, banking and finance. We launched ODA membership and affiliation late last year, and we have been delighted by the interest from so many diverse organisations who are joining Australia's ocean leadership community. These are businesses and institutions who have clear ideas about what needs to be prioritised and actioned to build a successful and sustainable blue economy, and who are seeking more seamless access to other parts of the ocean sector. They are also organisations with great experience, expertise and wisdom to impart, and who are deeply curious about other ocean actors and keen to learn from them. For a sustainable blue economy to really work requires a good grasp of who is part of the ocean sector, what motivates them to be there, and how governance of the ocean system affects those different groups. Distilling common threads and the barriers and challenges are core to addressing how we move forward together. At ODA, we have focused efforts on understanding ocean governance at the local, national, sub-regional, regional and global level, and there are a few places where all of those conversations come together than the United Nations Ocean Conference that is held every 3 years. Organised by the governments of France and Costa Rica, the third United Nations Ocean Conference will take place in Nice from 9 to 13 June. So who better to start our session than these 4 stellar contributors from the French and Australian governments. I welcome French Ambassador to Australia, Pierre-André Imbert, Ambassador James Larson, Permanent Representative of Australia to the United Nations, Rachel Parry, Deputy Secretary, and Katrina Maguire, Head of the International Environment, Reef and Ocean Division, both from Australian Government's Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. Ambassador Imbert, I welcome you to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Jace. I would like to thank all of you for your attendance to this great session. So I'm really happy to be with you to share some insights about this great events which is coming, the third United Nations Ocean Conference. 10 years after the Paris Agreement and the COP21, which established a binding global framework to limit climate change, the third United Nations Ocean Conference is a historic opportunity. And more than historic, it's a required and absolutely necessary opportunity. We know that the ocean is our common good. It feeds and protects our peoples. It makes us dream and travel. It provides us with sustainable energy, trade, resources, and infinite scientific knowledge. 1 in 3 people relies on the ocean for their livelihood, yet the ocean is in danger. It's an area that is still largely unknown and lacks the global governance and funding necessary for its preservation. We know that more than 1/3 of fish stocks suffer from overfishing, while ocean acidification, rising sea levels, and the destruction of marine ecosystems gain pace as direct consequences of climate change. That's why we must act now, more than ever before. We must make sure that the multilateral action is equal to the challenges of protecting the ocean. But we need, of course, this conference. But what with Costa Rica, as a hosting country, France is willing to do is to ensure the participation of all the actors throughout the world in this conference. That's why there will be many events around the UNOC3. And especially from the 2nd of June to the 9th of June, it will be open to a large audience to participate to these great events. Among them, I would like to underline 3 important summits. The first one is the One Science Congress Summit, which will gather from the 3rd to the 6th of June more than 2,000 international scientists. The main conclusion they will have will be handed over to the heads of states of government and on the 9th of June during the opening ceremony of the United Nations Ocean Conference. In that regard, we support, of course, the creation of a new international partnership on ocean sustainability to help countries accelerating the implementation of their international commitment in matters of sustainable management and protection of ocean. The second special event will be a forum dedicated to the blue economy and finance, to be held in Monaco on the 7th and the 8th of June. And the third special event, held on the 7th of June, will be a summit dedicated to cities and coastal regions directly impacted by the rising of sea level, in partnership with the Ocean and Climate Platform and the Sea Ties initiatives. It's so important that we have the mobilization of all these people to be sure that we will have a very great output, but also after to implement. Because we need some very important political declaration, but we also need to have action and to be sure that the commitments we all take are implemented. Among the great targets of this conference, I would see, of course, few of them which are of special importance. First is the ICES treaties. And we know that the ICES represent more than 60% of the ocean and are currently the only area not governed by international law. The BBNG agreement needs to be ratified by more than 60 countries to come into force. We are on the right track, but we need more and more countries to be sure that we'll be able to have common rules to avoid environmental disaster with massive hydrocarbon and plastic pollutions, illegal and unregulated fishing techniques, and captures of protected mammals. We need surveillance, and it will be provided with this new BBNG agreement. We will also need the implementation of our Cumming Memorial targets, and especially with the 30% of marine areas protected. And we will have some commitments as France to do more on a voluntary basis too. We have a lot of several commitments to be announced for global trade, shipping, tourism, investment during this summit. But we also want to be sure that we will be able to have all the legal instruments to be able to fight against the illegal fishing, and the plastic pollutions. This is our key challenges for our world. We are very optimistic to have a great United Nations Ocean Conference, thanks to the mobilization we all have in the different parts of the world before the UNOC. And I was pleased to co-organize with some NGOs and some friends from the Pacific and from the Indian Ocean with the French Embassy in Australia, and just to prepare this UNOC session. Because the more we are prepared, the more we can hear the voice of the oceans before the United Nations Conference, the best outcome we could hope. And of course, we rely on Australia's important role as for the political declaration, which is under the control of the permanent delegation in New York. So thank you and welcome to Nice for those who will have the pleasure and privilege to participate to these great events.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that background. We really appreciate your time, and we know that enormous preparation has been going on in France for this incredible conference, where there will be thousands of people joining. Part of an international meeting like the United Nations Ocean Conference is a political declaration, as the Ambassador outlined. And that declaration describes previous and ongoing work and also serves as a roadmap for future actions, providing a framework for international cooperation on ocean conservation and sustainable use. The President of the General Assembly has appointed Her Excellency Ms. Tania Romaldo, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Cabo Verde to the United Nations, and His Excellency Mr. James Larson, Permanent Representative of Australia to the United Nations, to conduct intergovernmental consultations on a brief, concise, action-oriented and intergovernmentally agreed declaration to be concluded by the 1st of May 2025, that is tomorrow, and adopted at the 2025 UN Ocean Conference. We will now hear from Ambassador Larson.
Been working very closely with my colleague, Ambassador Tania Romaldo from Cabo Verde on the United Nations Oceans Political Declaration. We're really excited to have made some good progress, I think, in the development of the political declaration. We've had fantastic input from civil society. I think we had well over 500 submissions from civil society groups. And we've been working extensively with key negotiators here in the United Nations to land a text which is, of course, a negotiated text, but one which includes a substantial amount of ambition and which advances us from UNOC3. Obviously, some of the themes which have been very important to us have been the nexus between climate change and oceans, also the question of implementation and development finance associated with oceans management, governance, restoration, and recovery, but also issues like plastics and a range of other matters, including fisheries, have all been part of the mix. I'm confident that as I speak, we are close to a final text, and by the time that you are looking at this message, we will have concluded, I very much hope, our negotiations. The oceans is a fundamental interest of Australia's and a fundamental interest of Australian government policy over a very, very long period of time. I very much hope that through UNOC3, we can make a further contribution to advancing our oceans interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Larson. I now welcome Deputy Secretary Rachel Parry from the Department of Climate Change, Energy the Environment and Water to address us as the person responsible for Australia's preparations, the Australian delegation. Over to Deputy Secretary Parry. Deputy Secretary Parry, if you are able to turn your video on, that would be terrific. If not, we can... Apologies for the technical delay. We might hand over to Katrina Maguire, who is on point for both our international presence at meetings like UNOC3 and also oversights the team responsible for Australia's Sustainable Ocean Plan. We will bring Deputy Secretary Parry back soon. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Jazz. Can I just double check you can hear and see me? Oh, can you hear me?
Over to you, Katrina. Ready to go.
Thanks, Jazz. Rachel's messaging me saying huge apologies that she can't get in, having some technical difficulties there. So I might just leap in and cover some of the things that Rachel was going to cover. Clearly very grateful to be here today, and I can see approximately 100 people on the line, which is a fabulous opportunity for us to be able to, after we're presented, to hear your perspectives and views. So we can really represent as part of the official delegation going to UNOC the views and perspectives of right across Australia. And in addition to that, I was very pleased just a couple of weeks ago to be able to participate with ocean ministers in the Pacific to prepare for participation in UNOC and to make sure the voices of the Pacific are really heard at UNOC. And they've done some fabulous preparation over many months to be able to advocate for the issues they're facing and the support they would like globally to help us all together to deliver on the objectives of the Sustainable Development Goal number 14. We are very much excited, and having heard Ambassador Imbert's priorities, also very excited and keen to hear about progress on the UN High Seas Biodiversity Treaty, which is certainly a priority for Australia. As everyone would be aware, in this final week leading up to the election, we are in caretaker mode, and so but we can talk with confidence about the positions of both major parties, the bipartisan support there is for Australia to ratify the High Seas Biodiversity Treaty. We are somewhat unique in the world in that legislation and system requires us to have implementing legislation developed in order for us to ratify. Many other countries are able to ratify and then develop legislation after that. But that is, Australia is quite unique, and with that comes a bit more time needed in order for us to be in a position to ratify. But very pleased to have to know that both major parties are very supportive of that. But in terms of other policy issues and policy positions, clearly, if Rachel is able to join, we are not able to talk about the policy positions or commitments that would be taken to UNOC until after the election, and clearly time to brief a minister and to discuss with the government whether there will be participation at a ministerial or leader level at UNOC. But we're certainly preparing as the department to send an official delegation. In addition to the official level delegation, we are very excited that there'll be a number of Australians over there, and hope we collectively can carry the priorities and messages about the importance of the ocean to Australia, and the huge range of issues in addition to BBNJ that Australia would like to work with the rest of the world to deliver on. We're very pleased to have engaged many of you in developing Australia's Sustainable Ocean Plan as part of our commitment on the high-level panel. And of course, we'll be briefing the government as quickly after the election as possible about where that is up to and how we can make progress in finalising that ocean plan. I think just a couple of logistics. So as I said, we are preparing to send an official delegation, and we were really pleased to have been accepted to host a side event in the Blue Zone. So the Blue Zone being where official delegates are able to access. And we'll be working very closely with our friends in the Pacific to make sure we develop a really engaging and relevant side event with the Pacific, with a particular focus on collaboration. We're yet to hear what other side events have been supported and agreed, and but we'll make sure ours is complements any others the Pacific will be hosting and leading on. We will have representatives at the three events that Ambassador Imbert mentioned, and so we're very much looking forward to that lead up as well. And of course, being part of, as the Australian government, the political declaration. So I might just leave it there, Jazz, and very happy. We've got a number of people from our team on the call, and very keen to hear people's priorities and perspectives, and how others are participating as well. So, and we're here to answer any questions if there's time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katrina. I now would like to bring on Deputy Secretary Parry to say a few words. And we have actually received a couple of questions in the Q&A. So over to you, Rachel. Thank you for that, and apologies for those technical difficulties.
So much, Jazz. And just confirming you can now hear me, and that's all good. Thanks so much to the Ocean Decade for bringing us together. In particular, Jazz, Lucy, Kate, really appreciate this opportunity. Can I also associate myself with your acknowledgement of country? And can I extend the welcome to Ambassadors Imbert and Larson for their messages as well. So as you've heard from Katrina, and look, I won't recanvass and we can move on to questions, but a couple of points that I really want to highlight. First, that, again, we are in caretaker, so a little bit limited on what we are saying, but I think what you will see and what you've heard is the strong presence that Australia will have at UNOC, both as particularly in the position that Ambassador Larson is carrying, but also the Australian government will have a very strong delegation across both the department and our science agencies, and we will have a very strong participation in the pre-events as well as the conference itself. And it's something that we are leaning into very strongly, given the importance and the connection, obviously, to the Sustainable Ocean Plan, how the Australian government is viewing the importance of oceans and using, again, the Sustainable Ocean Plan as the vehicle for pursuing that broader engagement. So thank you again for bringing us together. Probably worth our while just to flick to questions. But again, I hope you see this as a very strong posture on our behalf of the importance of this conference, and really keen to hear today about what the plans and priorities are more broadly across Team Australia that we see from the number of participants today.
Fantastic. Rachel, thank you so much. we've got a question here with respect to, sorry, my video. We do have a question here around who makes up official delegations. Can you just talk to some of your experience around these sorts of events and the types of people who attend?
Yeah. So our official delegation, so first and foremost, the delegation will be determined post-election once, again, if there's a minister that has the capacity to attend. And again, this is a little bit tricky. I do have to flag that just given the proximity of the election to the event, but we will be gauging an early interest from a minister as to their interest in attending. If a minister does attend, they become a de facto head of the delegation. But currently, right now, again, depending on the form and the outcomes of the election, it'll be a senior government official heading the delegation. That will either comprise myself or Katrina. Again, depending on what happens post-election and where our focus may need to be. Then the official delegation tends to be comprised of people who have obviously an active interest and a role in pursuing things either through side events, negotiations, bilaterals. So it is comprised of senior staff along with subject matter experts. And we also are having our portfolio agencies through the Australian Institute of Marine Science and the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority will be participating. And so we're finalizing the structure and composition of that delegation now, again, just keeping an eye to it. And the reason I can't be a little bit limited is just limited to the election. But I just want to give a flavor of the type of delegation. So there is a formal delegation, and then there's the broader kind of Australian interest who might not be in the formal delegation, but who are heavily participating in the conference itself. And that might be, again, broader representatives from agencies like the Bureau of Meteorology or CSIRO. So they will be participating in their own right, but they may not be part of the official delegation, which will have access to various zones that non-delegation members won't be able to have access to. So that's generally how it's constructed.
Fantastic, thank you, and a really helpful insight, I think, for people around this sort of an event. We do have a question in here. Not sure if you're able to respond to this one, but about the Pacific nations that Australia is most engaged with in regards to the runway to the United Nations Ocean Conference and on ocean priorities more broadly. We know there is a part of these sorts of events are lots of side meetings. In fact, a lot of people say that the business gets done in the margins of big conferences like this. Do you have anything to say there, Rachel, on Pacific nations and connection with Australia?
Yeah, look, and I'm going to rope in Katrina for this one, because Katrina was actually just participating in some meetings with our Pacific Island neighbours. But I think while she's joining, I will just preface it by saying our relationship with the Pacific Island nations and our friends and colleagues there remains incredibly important to us. It is something that we engage with them regularly as a department, as a portfolio, as our science agencies. That's an ongoing collaboration around our science, around our coral reef initiatives, through our aid and development programs, through capacity and knowledge sharing, through various other forums that we belong to within the Pacific Islands. So that doesn't change, that carries on. So I think it's fair to say, yes, we have been engaged quite heavily. But again, I might turn to Katrina and or Susie, who have been actually actively engaging with them just in the preceding weeks.
Thanks, Rachel. And I think I'm visible and audible. So yes, it was only a couple of weeks ago. I just mentioned it was actually the first meeting of ocean ministers across the Pacific, and there's been heaps of preparatory work, and at the meeting a couple of weeks ago, the Pacific were looking across the 10 themes of UNOC, and having great discussions about the Pacific context, what is important to the Pacific that is relevant to those 10 themes, and how can all the participants from the Pacific best represent the collective voice of the Pacific at UNOC. And there is fabulous alignment between the issues the broader Pacific is facing with also Australian priorities. So, the Pacific Ocean Commissioner has been, and the Office of the Commissioner has been a fabulous coordinating body to bring together those issues. So we're engaging largely through the Pacific Ocean Commissioner, because the Pacific is very keen to have a coordinated and well thought out participation at UNOC, and also to build on the previous UNOCs and ensure it's not just a forum to present, but very much a forum to interact and deliver on the previous UNOCs and deliver on the broader objectives of the Pacific. So yeah, we're working, in summary, working with OPOC, but also with each of the Pacific countries, because our priorities are so well aligned.
Thanks, Katrina. There's a question in here about state, regional and local governments and stakeholders being engaged and enabled to participate. I think that's a great question that maybe, as part of sustainable ocean planning, your considerations about how that's been going and how that work and that consultation translates up into Australian positioning when we get to these big global meetings. Could you speak to that one?
Yeah. Do you want me to take that one, Rachel?
Sure, happy to. We can do it together. You kick off and then I can add in.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Jazz. The engagement we did around the Sustainable Ocean Plan was, pretty much 2 years of targeted engagement around the plan, but that wasn't the start of the conversation and understanding the community, state, local, and other Australian government agency perspectives and priorities on the ocean. We're really building on decades of consultation and engagement and articulation of priorities. Where we got to in the draft plan was a focus on 8 priorities that were relevant across sectors and across jurisdictions, whether it be at the community level, local level, or state level. So we really feel quite confident. We know what's important to Australian people in achieving a healthy, sustainable and thriving ocean economy across multiple sectors, not just from an environmental conservation perspective, but also from industry and science and knowledge, the sort of data and information and innovation we're seeking. And again, going back to the Pacific, those issues at the sort of macro scale of illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing, plastics, dealing with pollution, high seas biodiversity, as well as essentially managing 100% of our oceans sustainably, and the importance of high conservation protection and values through marine protected areas, but not just focusing on those areas that have that high level of protection, but ensuring 100% of our ocean is sustainably managed.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. Rachel, any further insights?
Yeah, just a couple of points to add.
There's an enormous amount of topics that Katrina's just mentioned there. Over to you.
Yeah. Look, thanks, Jazz. And just a couple of points to add to that. Just the kind of tin tacks around delegations tends to be international meetings. International delegations are led by Commonwealth agencies. That tends to just be because we tend to be signatories to things as the Commonwealth agencies, etc. So that's sort of the overall protocol of international meetings. Having said that, as Katrina has clearly outlined, we can't do this work without our counterparts in the States. So that we work with them through various mechanisms, extensive consultation through the Sustainable Ocean Plan. We have an Environment Ministers Forum. We have a Senior Officials Environment Ministers Forums where we regularly seek input from the States on a variety of matters that would feed into our overall position and posturing for international meetings. So again, we do work closely with the States. We do it through a variety of different mechanisms, but it tends to be Commonwealth officials who comprise the delegations at international events.
Fantastic, thank you. We do have Ambassador Imbert in the conversation as well. If I can hand over to Ambassador.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add three points. The first one is that during as side event, one of our minister, Tali Mohamed Swahili, will chair an event dedicated to the specific, it will be a World Forum for Ireland. And because we know that Ireland, and especially small islands, have particular impacts about the climate change on oceans. And so it will happen on the Sunday, on the 8th afternoon, and on the 9th too. And so it will be a World Forum dedicated especially to the islands. The second point is the fact that I want to underline the alignment between France and Australia on all these topics, and especially not only on the political declaration, but the great work that we have achieved in preparation to UNOC. And so, as you know, that there has been the ministerial level ministerial meeting of the Pacific Island Forum in April, but we work with Pacific Ocean Commissioner, and you were there, Jace, in February in Suva. And so I was really pleased to take part to support this event with the University of New South Wales, but not only with the Pacific, because as Australia has many oceans in its borders, but we worked very closely with the Minderoo Foundation, but also with the Australian government to host a meeting about the Indian Ocean in Perth at the beginning of this month. And so I think that we will try to raise the consciousness and to be sure that we bring the voice of the different oceans at the conference. And so it's key to have your voice, and it's key to be all together to try to achieve these great commitments. And the last point is the fact that we need to have the best engagement. And so I will side with our colleagues from the DQ and to help them to have the best delegation from the new government in Australia. As for the moment, we have 68 of states who have confirmed their participation to the UNOC. And as we know that the nexus between climate change and the ocean is key, there will be also a link between the United Nations Conference and I hope, because this is the France position, to support the organization of the COP31 in 2026 by Australia as a COP of the Pacific. I know my colleagues can't speak about this because caretaker period, but I just want to underline that their great achievement to prepare both international conferences.
Thank you, Ambassador Imbert, for those points as well, and I think you make an excellent point regarding the Australian ocean estate. It's extraordinary the range of different ecosystems that exist around our very large island home. And I was very fortunate, thank you, for hosting that event in Perth with the Minderoo Foundation recently on the Indian Ocean. I certainly learnt a lot as a result of that. Look, I am just delighted with the level of engagement. Thank you to everyone who is putting questions into the Q&A. We are going to, at this point, move on to our insights from some of the organisations and the people leading them who are going to talk about why they're showing up at UNOC. But if I can please just get everyone to do a big virtual clap around Australia and beyond for those amazing insights and the level of engagement from our government officials coming and talking about that. As we've heard, These events are big, they're complex. There's lots of different interest groups, and bringing everyone together ultimately for that declaration that Ambassador Larson has been helping prepare is actually the milestone that we're looking for through these sorts of activities to make sure that we understand when we get together the next time where we've been and where we're going. Really appreciate all of those contributions so far. I now pass over to my colleague Lucy Buxton, who is going to host the next part of the event. Thanks.
Thanks, Jazz. I would also just like to mention that we've received some fantastic questions online. We weren't able to get to all of them, but at the end of the webinar, we will endeavour to address those questions with the specialists that have been online and provide answers to those through the post-event wrap-up and recording. So I'm delighted to be joined in this next session, as Jazz mentioned, by a number of representatives from organisations who will actually be attending the event in France. Before I get to them, I would just like to run through a little bit of detail around how all of these pieces of the puzzle fit together with regards to the private and public sector, and share with you some of the frameworks that pull together under the United Nations Ocean Decade. So some of you may be well familiar with this diagram. It's the United Nations Ocean Decade framework, and it provides a roadmap over the 10 years for how we can move from the ocean we want, which is represented on the ocean we have on the left, the ocean we want on the right, through the outcomes, and in between are the actions, challenges that we can do to achieve this. So shedding light on the achievements and success stories, as well as the remaining gaps and needs in ocean science, the latest progress report from the United Nations Ocean Decade of Science for Sustainable Development reflects a year of transformation for the global community. And this diagram just has some of those key top-level highlights. The coordination and reporting of nations into the United Nations Decade is conducted through a number of national decade committees from participating countries, as well as the associated government organizations and representatives from different countries, and come together in collaboration with each other. There's ways that we can push those up into the framework for the UN. With regards to the global activity, it is noted that this is a global effort from our previous speakers, and this slide illustrates the contributions from various countries to the Ocean Decade actions. And looking at this a little bit more detail around Australia's perspective, then the data analysis from that report shows that Australia is currently making up 4% of endorsed decade actions, and that is measured by a lead institution on an action being from Australia. They often are collaborating into other actions that might be led by another nation's lead institution as well. And in the report, over 1,000 Australian individuals have been involved in the decade actions to date, which is absolutely fantastic. Ocean Decade Australia has looked at that data in a little bit more detail to map Australia's contributions across the challenges that they relate to. And you can see here a very widespread, and since the last report that we did 2 years ago, there is an increase in the spread of Australia's contributions across the Ocean Decade challenges. The points it serves to highlight where there is extraordinary coordination and capability coming out of Australia, but that does not mean that Australia isn't contributing to those that look less represented. Either that might be through another nation's lead organization, but also the part of the decade that we're in at the halfway point, and the transition from into more implementation through the challenges such as community resilience. Again, with Australia, when we look at those leading actions, it is absolutely fantastic to see, when mapped across the oceans basins, how Australia is contributing to global efforts really around the world. We have particular capability and expertise in the oceans that surround us, but I think that this is a fantastic diagram to serve to show how Australia is a global collaborator. It's worth noting that science is often seen as the key enabler to provide knowledge, tools, and expertise to address these challenges, but it must be enacted through wide stakeholder engagement, including government, industry, business, and the corporate sector, communities, and individuals. With that in mind, several Australian representatives from across sectors and organisation type will be attending the United Nations Ocean Conference. This diagram itself shows from the reported data the types of lead institution that are contributing to the actions. And it's worth noting that while research organisations play a very big role, non-government organisations, the private sector, and international government intergovernmental organizations also lead contributors. And that's why it's incredibly important for us today to hear from a range of speakers who will be contributing to the conversations at UNOC, because ultimately all of this work translates into prosperity, both economically and environmentally. And we know that the ocean sector and the efforts and capabilities contained therein are an enormous driver of global prosperity and uplifting across the world. So with that in mind, I am delighted to bring into the conversation now our first spotlight speaker, Aaron Sayer from International Coastal Management. And I'd like to pose to Aaron the initial question, which is, why are you attending the United Nations Ocean Conference, and why is it valuable for your organization to be part of the event? Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Lucy, and thanks, everyone. It's really informative so far. Why attend UNOC? I mean, I'm an ocean person, just like most of you on the call. I don't know if you can see, I'm actually on a sailboat today. This is where I'm working from, so on and around the ocean as much as possible. The reason that we're going is our company is called International Coastal Management. We're based here on the Gold Coast, but we do works all over the world. So we have projects all up and down Australia at the moment, in Asia, in the Middle East, and over in the USA. So one of the things that we like to focus on and have been focusing on for the last few decades is not only coming up with coastal solutions, but coming up with multi-beneficial coastal solutions. So things like, if you're going to build a coastal structure to increase, coastal resilience and reduce erosion, why not do it in a way that you can also create ecological habitat? You can also create a point of interest for, swimming and diving and surfing even, so increase amenity. So all the time that we're trying to, reduce the natural processes of erosion in key areas, we're also trying to enhance those areas at the same time too, by implementing things like dune projects, so dune restorations. Just for example, at the moment we're working with the Queensland government on a project here in Queensland for Bribie Island, which has just broken through. So we're coming up with intermediate, immediate solutions and long-term solutions. We're also working with the council here on the Gold Coast. We've just been impacted by a 100-year event called Cyclone Alfred, which did some pretty significant damage on part of the coastline here. So we're working with the council to remediate those works. We're also working with organisations such as DECA down in Victoria, putting in new types of nature-based solutions. So things like salt marsh and mangroves to actually, prevent ongoing erosion while actually enhancing the, the local and regional ecology as well. So why go to this event is really knowledge sharing. So bringing the kinds of projects that we're doing, not only here in Australia, but the ones that we've basically developed in Australia. Now we're implementing in places like California, in places like the Middle East. So for us, it's really a knowledge sharing point that we can come together with other people around the world, show what we're doing, real world cases, and share that information, and hopefully, create contacts where we can implement those in other locations around the world.
That's brilliant, Aaron. Thank you so much for explaining how this incredible output from Australia is then able to link up and be showcased and share perspectives with that global community. That's fantastic. We're going to move on now to Sarah Ireland from the Great Barrier Reef Foundation. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Lucy and Jazz, and hello to everyone online. So I'll be quick. So for those of us who don't know, I'm from the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, and we are a partnering charity that works directly with researchers, industry, governments around the world, and we bring unique value as a funder, a program developer, and a convener and advisor, and we focus on coral reefs, but also islands and coasts that form that ecosystem to support a healthy coral reefs. And we focus particularly on Great Barrier Reef and in the Pacific, but really looking at how we can test and pilot solutions that can be scaled globally across other coral reefs. So we will be attending, if you go to the next slide, 3 representatives from the Great Barrier Reef Foundation will be attending the conference. So we will have, I can't see if we've got the slides, but we will have Anna Marsden, our Managing Director, Teresa Fife, Executive Director of Impact, and Larissa Hale, who is, thank you, Great Barrier Reef Foundation board member and the chair of Traditional Owner Advisory Committee. So if you go to the next slide, we have one event that's currently confirmed, and it's a side event. It will be at Ocean House on Tuesday, the 10th of June, and it's exploring the critical role of valuing nature in unlocking the new investment for the Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is, as you can see, most underfunded of all the SDGs. I won't read out the rest on that slide, you can see it, but we are finalising the speakers and the invite list next week. So we're definitely happy to share more information on that one as speakers are confirmed. If you go on to the next slide, we do have a couple of events that are still in discussion, and one of which is presenting an updated valuation of the Great Barrier Reef that we're doing with Deloitte Access Economics. Since the slides were put together, we will not be actually launching the valuation report itself, but that will come slightly afterwards. But we will be able to showcase some of the findings and that will be in that report, and we'll be able to talk on that in a little bit more detail. And then the second one is looking at the Pacific, so in partnership with the Watt Foundation and the Nature Conservancy, so showcasing conservation work in Samoa and how philanthropists are collaborating with government and local communities to enhance climate resilience. Teresa and Anna will also be at the Ocean Science Congress in Nice on the 4th to the 6th of June, and Teresa will be speaking on coast and island restoration. And they'll also, both of them will also be attending the Blue Economy and Finance Forum in Monaco on the 7th and 8th of June, but won't be speaking. And I know we're late on time, so I'll just wrap it up by saying we're really there to, we're a partnering organisation, so sharing knowledge that we have, but also meeting other actors and stakeholders working in this space. So please do reach out if you do want to meet with any of the representatives. Are you there?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah. And a really great example there of the coordination between your organisation, finance sectors and other partners to really bring some of these huge ambitions to life. So we really look forward to hearing more about that, and thank you for the event details. Our next speaker that I'd like to invite is Andrew Outhwaite from For Blue. Andrew, would you like to tell us about your activities and perspectives of why you're attending?
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone for attending and for the invitation to host and share what we're up to. So the ocean and people and organizations, the people and organizations fighting for a healthy ocean are really complex and evolving, as our previous speakers have spoken to. And I feel like much like halfway through a mass migration in this ocean decade, this is a great time to check in, align, and share with resources with others for like the rest of the journey. So For Blue was founded as a social enterprise to address significant gaps between the stated aspirations of nations and states around the Indian Ocean and their actual progress and implementation. So we've made fantastic progress with clients and partners over the last 5 years, particularly on ocean governance, on scaling up innovations that deliver benefits to the ocean, and creating new industry clusters that will take us towards a target of 10% of the economies around the Indian Ocean being based on sustainable blue activities by 2030. So this has involved hundreds of ventures and thousands of participants, including in our 3 annual conferences. And we've spun out a new not-for-profit, Blue Assembly, which focuses particularly on cross-sectoral oceans governance and has a really interesting structure and approach to doing that. So as well as myself attending, a representative of Blue Assembly will also be attending. I think for us, it's a fantastic opportunity to listen with humility to a lot of other experts and players from around the globe to hear what we might be able to learn from them and replicate, and where it's appropriate, share the lessons we've learned from trying to be extremely efficient and effective in shifting key ocean health metrics through innovation, through finance, and through better governance. So specifically at UNOC, there's a couple of ocean action panels that relate to mobilising finance and sustainable ocean economies. And there's a preceding Blue Economy Finance Forum that I'll be attending. I think particularly important is trying to support international commitments that then make it easier for us to leverage reform and action at home, especially around governance and finance. And because we do a lot of work in Southeast Asia, particularly Indonesia, it's a great opportunity to connect with representatives of those nations, which we're all in the same place at the same time, and it can be easier to meet everyone there than even in country. So making connections with them both through the side events and through the main events will be fantastic. And we'll also be looking for opportunities for the innovators that are in our commercial portfolio to find new markets, investors or collaborators. And the last thing is, fortunately, the WA State Government and City of Fremantle have supported this trip with an award that's helping cover some of the travel costs. And they're particularly interested in seeing, are there events or speakers or partners that we can bring to the City of Fremantle and State of Western Australia. So looking for, basically events and conferences and partners to attract more of the ocean community to this eastern part of the Indian Ocean. So that's why we're attending, what we'll be paying attention to. And really looking forward to connecting to the other Australians over there and doing what we can together.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew. And yes, we are, and many of the community online are very aware of the deep engagement that you and the team through Blue Assembly as well are doing in the Indian Ocean space, and very grateful for that expertise being brought to the conference. So thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Rachel James from WWF Australia to share her perspectives. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, greetings, everyone. I'm joining you from Gubbi Gubbi country on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you, Ambassador Imbert and Ambassador Larson. Thank you, Jazz and Lucy, Rachel and Katrina. As the interim global lead of the Coral Reef Rescue Initiative with WWF Australia, and a proud Solwara woman who has traditional custodian, Indigenous, matrilineal clan heritage to direct Clan Coral Reef Custodians in Papua New Guinea, who's also an Australian. I'm really excited and looking forward to attending UNOC in Nice, France. As leading a global program, we support ambition across 7 countries of the world, high priority seascape coral reef areas identified under the 50 Reefs project. We plan to collectively drive ambition and advocacy, new science, new solutions at UNOC. I believe by collaborating with country partners, governments, NGOs, community organisations, and global community to preserve and protect priority area coral reefs globally, to commit on new ambition for climate resilient coral reefs. A major objective of ours at UNOC is catalysing action through strategic partnerships. UNOC presents a very strategic opportunity for us, the Coral Reef Rescue Initiative. It's an important runway for advocacy and driving collective ambition around climate resilient reefs towards Brazil, COP30. We plan on engaging driving ambition with wide-ranging partners, donors, NGOs, community partners more broadly. And WWF really believes in collective ambition, collaborating together, and together is possible. So connecting, sharing is very important for us, sharing knowledge, sharing access to tools and information. So new technology that we've been developing through the initiative, through our global part. This is a really important opportunity to connect with our global network and connecting the local to global and global to local. We have a number of side events in the green zone and blue zone. So very strategic. We're looking forward to Blue Zone support. We've been approved an event with WCS and government partners, the Papua New Guinea government, the Fiji government, even French government supporting a high-level event and a joint commitment on climate resilient coral reefs. And we look at hosting this with our partners and our donors to drive collective ambition. It will include a signing event where governments can sign on to commitments as a rampway towards COP30, driving collective ambition, but also an opportunity to share in-country success and share knowledge across a global network, our Reef Alliance community.
Fantastic, Rachel. Thank you so much. And I think you've just raised a really valuable point there about the way that UNOC and COP are on a runway for each other with regards to these international frameworks. So thank you for that comment. These sustained efforts in global cooperation are incredibly important. And we look forward to hearing more about that declaration and the strong ambition behind it. Next, I would like to invite Nick Relly from the Ocean Impact Organization to share some of his perspectives. Hi, Nick.
Hi, everyone. I'll keep this nice and brief. Yeah, I'm Nick Shirelli, CEO from Ocean Impact Organisation. But when it comes to UNOC, I'll mostly be wearing another hat that I wear, and that is as one of the co-chairs of an organisation called 1000 Ocean Startups. 3 or 4 years ago, Ocean Impact Organisation was one of the founding members of 1000 Ocean Startups. And essentially, it's a coalition, global coalition of venture capital firms, accelerators and incubators that are all concerned with driving innovation and investment into the blue economy. There's around 50 members of that organisation now, and it's growing. And one of the main initiatives that we're undertaking at UNOC is a innovation and startup pavilion in the blue zone. So I think we'll have around 30 or 40 startups that will be on display there. It's still, how it exactly looks is still coming together, as you can imagine. But it will be the largest innovation and investment sort of section of the conference, and we're all about trying to address the SDG funding gap. So we have a belief that innovation and is going to be a big part of the sustainable blue economy, and startups are the bedrock of that. And it's a way for us to display some of the fantastic innovators and solutions that are taking place as a way to attract more of the funding that we need. Also worth mentioning that the Blue Economy Finance Forum is happening just down the road in Monaco on the weekend just prior to UNOC. So there's a whole bunch of us gathering globally really to show off innovation to attract more investment. I think I'll leave it there. A bit tight on time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Nick. And again, a really welcome reminder about the translation of science into programs, into innovation, into commercialization, and that link that the United Nations Ocean Decade has across all of that for building our economy. So thank you so much for your insights on finance and the innovation sector. We are running a little over time, so appreciate all of our attendees hanging on. We've got one last spotlight speaker, last but not least, and I would like to invite Gillian Goby from the Sustainable Ocean Shipping Hub Australia, SOSHA, to share your views. Hi, Gillian.
Hi, Lucy and Jazz. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody from Noongar country, the Whadjuk people. I will keep this as quick as I can. Today, I'm representing SOSHA, so the Sustainable Ocean Shipping Hub Australia. It's a not-for-profit initiative championing the decarbonisation of Australia's maritime sector. So SOSHA exists to bring stakeholders together and accelerate action and fast-track proven solutions for a greener shipping industry and a supply chain that benefits both people and planet. Next slide, please. Shipping is the backbone of Australia's economy. Over 99% of our trade by volume and nearly 79% moves by sea. Australia's maritime trade generates significant share of global emissions. In 2020, there was about 40 million tonnes of CO2, or 4% of total global shipping emissions. So if Australia wants to stay competitive and meet our emissions targets, that we need a domestic strategy that prepares ports, fuels, and infrastructure for the zero carbon future that the world is moving to. Next slide, please. Fortunately, we aren't behind the 8 ball. There's a lot of commendable government initiatives, the safeguard mechanism, development of the Maritime Emissions Reduction National Action Plan, and investment in future fuels. And industries and ports are doing their parts as well. But without a national plan, we simply won't reach the 20 to 30 emissions cut by 2030 or net zero by 2050. And last slide, please. So why are we attending UNOC? It aligns with our mission. At SOSHA, we want action, collaboration, and impact. We're focused on real outcomes and uniting governments, ports, industries, and researchers to cut shipping emissions and ensure Australia's maritime trade becomes sustainable for future generations. UNOC3 will be an opportunity to have all the key players and stakeholders in the same place. It provides a platform to make ambitious goals and commitments. And so, for example, decarbonising the shipping industry can help Australia deliver on its priority area, which is elevating the role of ocean-based climate action in advancing Australia's net zero 2050 target. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for the opportunity and looking forward to meeting everybody in Nice.
Thank you so much, Gillian, and a huge thank you to all of our contributors in that spotlight session for their range of perspectives and representation from different organisations and sectors to really showcase to our audience why and how UNOC can uplift Australia's contributions and connect with our global community. We unfortunately have run out of time and do not have time to take any more Q&A in this section, but we are recording all of those that are being submitted via the Q&A function. And as I said, we will endeavour to answer those offline and publish them in the wrap-up from this event. In closing, I would like to say a huge thank you to all of our speakers in both sessions for providing their expertise and insights. Just a reminder again that if any of the audience are attending the UNOC Ocean Conference, please do be in touch to Ocean Decade Australia, who is collecting that information and providing those insights across the community. We will be on the ground in UNOC and providing insights as we go through the event. And we will also be hosting a post-UNOC briefing later in the year to share with our community the outcomes and key priorities that have come out of the meeting itself. On behalf of Ocean Decade Australia, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. A recording will be made available on our website, as I said, after this event. If you have any questions or would like to be in touch, please do contact us through these links. And if you'd like to talk to us about joining Ocean Decade Australia as an affiliate, you can use this contact information or see further on our website. And with that, I'd like to say thanks and goodbye.